I've always liked jogging alone, especially out in the countryside where the air is clean and the roads stretch on in silence. No traffic, no people, just me, the sound of my breath, and the steady rhythm of my feet on gravel. That morning felt perfect. It was early autumn, and the leaves had just started to curl and crisp at the edges. The sky was a soft gray, the kind that made colors pop. The golden fields, the distant tree lines, the old wooden fences that ran along the narrow path I liked to take. I'd done that route dozens of times, never saw more than the occasional rabbit or a hawk overhead. Never felt unsafe, until that day. I was about 3 miles out when I first heard it. A bark. Low, deep, far off, but unmistakable. I slowed, scanning the horizon. The fields to my left stretched out wide and flat, the right side lined with a small grove of trees. Another bark. Closer now. Then I saw it. A massive dog, jet black, with matted fur and wide shoulders, loping toward me from a cluster of brush about 100 yards away. It wasn't wagging its tail. It wasn't curious. It was locked on me. I stood my ground at first, thinking the dog was just bluffing at first. But then it broke into a full sprint. "Hey," I shouted, waving my arms, hoping maybe it belonged to someone. Maybe it would stop. It didn't, and I ran really hard. My legs kicked up gravel and dirt as I bolted down the path. I could hear it, its claws hitting the road, its breath like a train engine, getting closer and closer. I veered off the road into the field, hoping the tall grass would slow it down. It didn't. Then I felt it, a sharp tearing pain on the back of my right thigh. I screamed and fell, tumbling into the dirt as the dog's teeth ripped through my running shorts and dug into flesh. It was biting me, snarling, thrashing its head like it wanted to pull me apart. Instinct took over. I kicked it in the snout. Once, twice, just enough to make it stumble back. Bleeding and shaking, I got to my feet and limped toward the nearest thing I could climb, a thin tree about 20 yards ahead. It wasn't much, but it was tall and low-branched. I scrambled up, half jumping, half dragging myself with a whimper, and just barely got out of its reach before it lunged again. I clung to the branch like my life depended on it, because it did. The dog stayed below, pacing, barking, its eyes locked on me. It wasn't leaving. It barked, growled, pawed the tree trunk. At one point, it tried to leap, snapping at the air beneath my feet. This dog looked well-built and strong. My leg throbbed with pain. I reached down and felt the warm stickiness. My fingers came back red. My heart was still pounding so hard, I thought it might give out before the dog did. I didn't know how long I stayed there. 10 minutes? 15? The dog never gave up. It just stayed at the base, howling and snarling, like it had been waiting for this moment its whole life. I remembered then the bear spray in my small running pouch. I'd brought it just in case I ran into any wildlife in the woods, but I'd never actually had to use it. I pulled it out with trembling hands, nearly dropped it, then aimed down at the black blur below. "Go away," I shouted. The dog lunged again. I sprayed. I did not have any choice. A wide orange mist shot down, catching it straight in the eyes and nose. The effect was immediate. It yelped, backed up, shook its head violently, sneezed, gagged, tried to bark but ended up choking instead. It spun in circles for a moment, rubbing its face into the grass. And then it ran. Just like that. I waited a few more minutes, clutching the tree, trying to calm my breath. The pain in my leg was worse now. The adrenaline was wearing off. My thigh felt hot, torn and raw, but I could move it. I could walk. I climbed down slowly, scanning the tree line. No dog. I limped back the way I came, one step at a time, every twig snap, making my heart skip. The road felt longer now and the shadows deeper. I must have looked like a mess when I finally flagged down a passing pickup truck. The guy took one look at my bloodied leg and rushed me straight to the nearest clinic. I needed 6 stitches. They cleaned the wound, gave me a tetanus shot, and started me on antibiotics. The nurse asked if I saw the owner. I told her no. Told the sheriff the same thing. They never found the dog. No collar, no sightings, no prints, no farms nearby with missing dogs. Nothing. Sometimes I wonder where it came from. If it was feral, abandoned, or something worse. A beast that doesn't belong to anyone, that just waits in the fields for the next runner. I've always had this strange pull toward America's forgotten places. Ghost towns, back roads, little dots on the map that most folks don't even notice. There's something about them that makes me feel closer to something real, or maybe just more alone in the best kind of way. Back in late September of 2010, I had a job that blessed me with an absurd amount of free time. The kind of gig where, as long as you met your weekly quota, no one really cared where you were. So I drove. A lot. That Friday morning, I found myself 2 hours deep into Alabama's back country. The road had long since lost its lane markings, trees pressed close from both sides, and I hadn't passed another car in over half an hour. Then, just as the woods began to thin, I rolled into what looked like a small town, if you could still call it that. It was the sort of place you could miss if you blinked. Old weather-beaten buildings with caved-in roofs, rusted signage, and busted windows. I'd seen 100 towns like this from behind the wheel. Normally, I'd do a slow loop and drive on. But something about this place, maybe the way the sun hit the old grocery store, or the way the weeds danced lazily through broken concrete, made me stop. I parked my SUV under a leaning telephone pole and stepped out into a silence so thick it rang in my ears. No birds, no wind. Just the creak of a swinging sign that said Wilkerson's Market, faded red letters on rotting wood. Right in front of that old store, a few gnarled apple trees stood tall, surprisingly healthy. I plucked one, red and firm, took a bite, sweet. Dusty, but good. I strolled further, about 300 yards from my vehicle, enjoying that apple, letting the moment settle in. That's when I heard them. It was like thunder at first. Then, the sharp sounds of claws scraping asphalt. I turned, and that's when I saw them. 10 dogs. Big ones. Not your average strays. These weren't the skinny mutts you feel sorry for. These things looked fed, muscled, wild, no collars, no hesitation. They came fast. My instincts kicked in before my brain did. I ran for the nearest shelter, an old rusted-out sedan with missing tires, just sitting by the curb like it had been waiting decades for someone to need it. I leapt onto the hood, scrambled to the roof, panting, heart thundering. They surrounded the car, barking and snarling, their eyes locked on me like I was a rabbit in a cage. I pulled my knife, a decent one I always carried for camping. But against 10 dogs? No way. I held it anyway, more comfort than defense. After a few minutes, the barking died down, but they didn't leave. A few paced. Others sat on the road like statues, watching, waiting. I don't know how long I was up there before I looked out past them and saw 2 more dogs, huge ones, coming from down the road. Bigger than the others, more scarred, slower in their stride, like kings returning to a battleground. That's when the pack below me started reacting. tails stiffened. Growls replaced barks. Then, like a switch flipped, they all bolted toward the newcomers. It was chaos. Snarls, barking, dirt flying. I didn't wait to see who won. I slid off the back of the car, landed hard, and sprinted. Didn't look back, didn't breathe, just ran. When I slammed my door shut and locked it, it was like being reborn. I sat in the driver's seat, hands shaking, watching the brawl from a distance in my rearview mirror. Then I started the engine and slowly crept away, just in case the sound drew their attention again. But I didn't leave right away. Curiosity still had its claws in me. I did stop by the same apple tree again, picked few apples from inside of my SUV. They were simply delicious. I drove around that broken little town, carefully this time, watching every alley and empty lot, and I saw more of them. Dogs. Dozens. Lurking. Watching. Some wandered in pairs. Some stood motionless in doorways. All looked like they belonged to no one, yet none of them were starving. I don't know what they were eating. I don't want to know. But here's the strangest part. I saw no sign of people. Not one. No smoke, no laundry, no voices. That town had been abandoned for decades, judging by the condition of everything. The bones of a place that time forgot. And yet, the dogs remained, thriving, waiting. I've driven through hundreds of back roads since then. Still do. But I've never gotten out of my vehicle again without thinking twice. Because there are places in this country that don't belong to us anymore. That little Alabama town, it belongs to them now, and I was lucky to leave it walking.